If you asked someone what is a personal computer, if you ask them that, it depends on how old they are. They would tell you a lot of different ideas, a lot of different answers. Computers a long time ago were a lot different than they are today, and they all run on different operating systems. You have iOS, that's the one I want to talk about today, but you have Mac and Windows and Linux. But I believe that iOS is one of the most influential and most important inventions of our modern day. Now, when you think about iOS and talk about where it came from, it didn't start off in a phone from the beginning. First, there was the Apple II computer, which was one of the more influential computers that Apple came up with in the beginning. Now, the Apple II, as you can see, it's a lot more bulky. It had a deep tube screen, not even a very big screen at that. However, because of this, it helped Apple become the company that it is today. Now, there have been many changes in our computing world, especially in the world of Apple. You've got laptops, desktop computers, the iPhone, and the iPad today. And what I'd like to focus on is those last two, the iPhone and the iPad. They both run iOS. And so when we talk about iOS, we need to talk about where did it all begin. And so the iPod was the most influential device for Apple coming into the 2000s. The iPod changed the way that people listened to music. It shaped the way that we viewed mobile devices. They had the iPod Shuffle that followed. There was the iPod Nano. And later on, they also came out with the iPod Touch. And these are all very influential devices. If we look at the iPhone, when Steve Jobs first released this, the keynote speech that he gave, he came out and he said that it combined three very important and influential things to our lives. It combined a phone, it combined the greatness of the iPod with listening to music, and then it combined that with web browsing. And Steve Jobs believed these three things to be very important for the world that we live in, that it would be important that we have all three of those things. And because of that, it became one of the most important and best mobile phones of its time, even today. And that was the birth of iOS. They incorporated all the things from the iPod and they built it into an interface that works for today. And so we have iOS on our iPhones. We have small versions of it that run on the Apple Watch, on the Apple TV. Apple has incorporated this into many different things, including the iPad. Now, the iPad is Apple's version of creating a mobile computer that is different from all of the other computers they sell because it is incredibly mobile, but it also uses iOS, which is one of the easiest operating softwares to use. There are many people who have a difficult time running a computer and working on a computer because there's so many options and things that you have to know. And iPad is simple and it's pretty easy to figure out. And because of this, Apple is continuing to change iOS to make it more usable and more pro-friendly. And because of that, it's turning into one of the modern computers of the world. Recently, they've even announced a new iPad it's got a full trackpad support and everything, all running iOS. And so iOS is, I believe, one of the most important operating systems as well as inventions. There's just about everybody in the world has either owned one of these devices, an iPod, an iPhone, an iPad, or at least used one in social settings or with someone else. They truly have shaped the world that we live in today. And because of Steve Jobs' invention, it's one of the best operating softwares available and one of the best options for a computer that you can get today, an iPhone or an iPad. And so the iOS operating software being a great invention is something that I use all today, and this is actually the operating software that I have used to create the slideshow and the video, and it is truly the modern way to compute and create.